The 1,970 seconds, a decade of revolution, freedom, and unforgettable music. But hidden beneath the legends were songs that came like lightning, striking fast, burning bright, and vanishing just as quickly. One moment, they ruled the airwaves. The next, silence. These weren't just songs, they were snapshots of a generation, anthems of summer nights, heartbreak confessions, and restless highways. Decades later, they still echo, proving that even one fleeting hit can carve its place in history. This is the story of the one-hit wonders of the 70 seconds. Few songs capture pop innocence as perfectly as Pilot's Magic. With its sparkling production handled by none other than Alan Parsons and its whimsical hook, the track floated onto the airwaves in 1975 like a breath of fresh air.
On me, you make me sad with your eyes. You're telling me lies.
That opening line, "Ho ho ho, it's magic," felt like an invitation to a dream. The song reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and made Pilot look like the next great pop act. But the follow-ups didn't land, and the band quietly unraveled. Members slid into session work, with some eventually collaborating with bands like Alan Parsons Project and even Elton John. Meanwhile, magic never left. It reappeared in commercials, movie soundtracks, and even Disney ads, its optimistic shimmer making it a perennial favorite. Pilot may have vanished, but their one song still sparkles like starlight in pop culture.
Ho, 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 it's magic.
No one dominated 1,979 like The Knack. Their debut single, My Sharona, hit with the swagger of a new Beatles moment, cocky, fast, and driven by that unforgettable stuttered hook. Written by frontman Doug Fieger for his teenage girlfriend Sharona Alperin, the track captured obsession, lust, and the energy of youth in a way that resonated instantly. It spent 6 weeks at number 1 on Billboard and became the fastest-selling debut single since the Beatles. But what goes up fast can come down even faster. Critics turned on The Knack, accusing them of arrogance and overhype. Their follow-up material fell flat, and the backlash was so intense that the music industry coined a new term for their crash and burn: getting knacked. Groovy, funky, and impossibly catchy, Come and Get Your Love wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural milestone. The track climbed to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 Inches 1,974, then found new life decades later when it blasted through the opening scene of Guardians of the Galaxy. But Redbone was more than a one-hit wonder, they were pioneers. Founded by brothers Pat and Lolly Vegas, Redbone was one of the very first Native American rock bands to break into the mainstream. With roots in Yaqui, Shoshone, and Mexican heritage, the Vegas brothers infused their music with cultural pride and political commentary. Their earlier track, We Were All Wounded at Wounded Knee, was outright banned in the US for its raw look at Native history. But Come and Get Your Love slipped through the cracks, a joyful celebration wrapped in funky rhythms. Though they never matched the same commercial success again, Redbone's legacy was never just about chart positions. They gave Native voices a place in rock history, and that, in itself, was revolutionary. Few songs have made the world weep the way Seasons in the Sun did. Adapted from Jacques Brel's French original, with softer lyrics penned by poet Rod McKeown, the Canadian singer Terry Jacks created a farewell ballad that touched millions. Selling more than 14 million copies worldwide, it became one of the biggest global hits of the decade. The haunting part? Jacks first offered the song to the Beach Boys, but when they passed, he recorded it himself. The result was a song embraced by soldiers saying goodbye, prisoners reflecting on life, and families grieving loved ones. Even Kurt Cobain later called it one of his childhood favorites. Instead of chasing fame, Jacks walked away from the spotlight, turning to environmental activism. He left behind one of the most heart-wrenching goodbyes in pop music history, a reminder that sometimes one song is enough to leave an eternal mark. Before he ever had a hit, Billy Swan was the kind of guy who made other people sound great. He wrote songs for the likes of Conway Twitty, played bass for Chris Christopherson, and worked behind the scenes as a studio hand and road manager. Then one day, he bought a beat-up $40 Farfisa organ, and with it came the song that would define his life. I Can Help was lighthearted and playful, with a groove that felt effortless. Released in 1974, it rocketed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 2 weeks. Even more impressive, it went international topping charts in 15 countries. The song was so irresistible that even Elvis Presley added it to his repertoire, performing it live and recording a version just months before his death. Swan never managed to follow it up with another smash, but he didn't need to. That one joyful track proved that sometimes the stars align just once, and if you're lucky, once is enough to last a lifetime. If rock and roll had a hymn book, Spirit in the Sky would be on the first page. With its fuzzed-out guitars, foot-stomping rhythm, and booming gospel choir, the song was unlike anything else when it dropped in 1970. It reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed on the charts for 15 weeks, cementing its place in music history. What makes it remarkable is the man behind it. Norman Greenbaum, a Jewish singer-songwriter from Massachusetts, openly admitted he had never even read the New Testament. His inspiration wasn't theology, it was the sound. He thought a gospel-flavored song about the afterlife, paired with gritty distortion, would just work. And it did, better than he ever imagined. After its release, Spirit in the Sky took on a second life. It became a Hollywood favorite, appearing in blockbuster films like Apollo 13, Wayne's World 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Covered more than 200 times, it has been reborn again and again. Meanwhile, Greenbaum stepped away from the spotlight, eventually raising goats on a California farm. Yet his one hit outlived him in pop culture, a timeless anthem about the great beyond. Close your eyes and listen to Beach Baby, and you'd swear it was born on the California coast, a sun-soaked anthem about cars, girls, and golden summers. In reality, the song was crafted thousands of miles away in London. The band The First Class wasn't really a band at all, but a project built in the studio by songwriters John Carter and Tony Burrows. Released in 1974, Beach Baby rose to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and tricked millions into believing it was the next Beach Boys classic. The production was lush, the harmonies tight, and the nostalgia undeniable. To keep up appearances, a fake touring version of The First Class was quickly assembled, but without Carter and Burrows, the magic just wasn't there. Burrows, meanwhile, became known as the king of one-hit wonders, lending his voice to multiple short-lived hits throughout the 70 seconds. Still, Beach Baby remains his crowning moment, a British-made postcard to the endless summer that America never wanted to end. Sometimes the simplest songs are the ones that last forever. In 1970, Ray Dorset, frontman of British band Mungo Jerry, sat down and wrote In the Summertime in just 10 minutes. The band then recorded it in less than 2 hours. No elaborate production, no chorus, barely even a song structure, yet it became one of the best-selling singles of all time, moving over 30 million copies worldwide. The track captured pure joy. Clinking bottles, skiffle rhythms, and carefree lyrics about cars, girls, and sunshine. It didn't matter that it was rough around the edges, it felt like summer distilled into sound. Year after year, the song returns like clockwork, re-entering playlists whenever the weather warms up. Ray Dorset never chased stardom after that. He left the music spotlight, turning his attention to inventing camping gear and living a quieter life. But In the Summertime didn't need him to endure. It became eternal, as permanent a fixture as the season itself. A love song so sweet and catchy it felt destined for the charts. But behind Edison Lighthouse's 1,970 hit Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes was a bit of smoke and mirrors. The band didn't really exist, it was a studio creation. The vocals came from Tony Burrows, a British session singer with one of the strangest claims to fame in pop history. After Love Grows soared to number 1 inch the UK and number 5 inches the US, producers scrambled to assemble a touring version of Edison Lighthouse to keep the illusion alive. But Burrows wasn't even in it. In fact, Burrows became notorious for fronting multiple fake bands. On one single episode of Top of the Pops, he performed with 4 different groups, each with their own one-hit wonder. Today, Love Grows remains the jewel of his career, a bubblegum gem that still makes people smile, even if the band behind it was never quite real. Few songs hit with as much raw force as Ram Jam's 1,977 version of Black Betty. Based on a 20th century African-American folkwork song, the band electrified it with heavy guitars and pounding drums, turning tradition into a thunderous rock anthem. The single cracked the top 20 on Billboard, but controversy came just as quickly. Civil rights groups criticized the lyrics, radio stations in several cities banned it, and the backlash crippled the band's momentum. Ram Jam never recovered, fading as quickly as they rose. Yet Black Betty refused to disappear. Its primal energy kept it alive in sports arenas, biker bars, and hard rock radio. In 2004, Australian band Spiderbait covered it, reigniting its power for a new generation. What began as a work song became a rallying cry, a one-hit wonder that still shakes the ground decades later. Freedom, youth, and a love affair under the stars, that's the story Sammy Johns captured in Chevy Van. Released in 1973, it shot to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and, almost hilariously, even boosted sales of vans across America. The song tells of a drifter who picks up a girl, shares a fleeting night of intimacy in his van, and drives off with nothing but memories. It became the anthem of the 1,970 seconds van culture, where 4 wheels meant freedom and endless highways. The irony? Sammy Johns himself never even owned a van. Though Johns never scored another big hit, Chevy Van gave him immortality as the voice of a generation chasing adventure and romance on the open road. Nobody expected Vicki Lawrence, a young comedic sidekick on The Carol Burnett Show, to suddenly deliver one of the decade's most chilling story songs. But in 1972, her debut single, The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, shot straight to number 1, shocking critics and fans alike. A Southern Gothic murder ballad, the track tells of betrayal, injustice, and an execution in small-town Georgia. It was so controversial that radio stations in Georgia flat out banned it. And here's a twist. The song was originally offered to Cher, who turned it down. Lawrence took the chance, and for 3 minutes on the airwaves, she transformed from sitcom funny girl to haunting storyteller. She never had another major hit, but that one moment in the spotlight remains unforgettable, a strange, eerie tale that still echoes through country and pop history. Soft as summer air, playful as a night breeze, Moonlight Feels Right was unlike anything else on the radio in 1976. With its mellow vibe and hypnotic marimba solo, it drifted its way to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. What makes it even better is the backstory. Over 24 radio stations rejected the song before a small Alabama DJ decided to give it a spin. From there, it spread like wildfire. Starbuck didn't fit neatly into rock or pop categories, too quirky for one, too gentle for the other. That mismatch meant they faded from the charts almost as quickly as they arrived. But Moonlight Feels Right has endured. It pops up in commercials, retro playlists, and summer nostalgia mixes. Like moonlight on water, it never burns too bright, but it always lingers a one-hit wonder that feels just right. In 1972, New Jersey's Looking Glass released what sounded like a sailor's ballad disguised as a love song. Brandy, You're a Fine Girl told the story of a barmaid in a harbor town who wins the hearts of sailors but loses them all to the sea. With its bittersweet twist, the sailor loves the ocean more than her. It captured both romance and heartbreak in a single verse. The song shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became a favorite among the US Navy, blasting from ships across the world. It also left its mark ashore in 1973. Brandy became one of the most popular baby names in America. Looking Glass never managed to follow up the success, but the song itself refused to fade. Decades later, it was resurrected in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where it wasn't just a soundtrack pick, it was woven into the plot, described as the greatest song ever written about unrequited love. Proof that sometimes a single story song can live far longer than the band who made it. Blasting horns, swaggering vocals, and raw energy Vehicle was pure muscle in musical form. The debut single from Chicago's The Ides of March in 1970, it became an instant smash, racing to number 2 on Billboard and becoming Warner Brothers' fastest-selling single of all time. The song's origins, though, were personal and a little cheeky. Frontman Jim Petterick wrote it about a girl who seemed to only call when she needed a ride. He delivered the line, "I'm your vehicle, baby," with just the right mix of frustration and charm. The irony? That same girl later became his wife. Though the Ides of March couldn't sustain their chart-topping momentum, Paterick didn't fade into obscurity. Instead, he went on to co-found Survivor and co-wrote one of the most iconic rock anthems of all time, Eye of the Tiger. In hindsight, Vehicle wasn't just a one-hit wonder. It was the first step in the journey of a man destined to leave an even bigger mark on rock history.